One of the most important concepts of Vedanta is renunciation, and it is one of the most misunderstood concepts. Renunciation is taken as giving up things of the world. Renunciation is taken as giving up action, giving up all that you like, all that you value. And since that is distasteful to us, we give up Vedanta instead. It's like a patient who goes to a doctor and the doctor tells him a few unpleasant truths and asks him to follow a certain, change his lifestyle, change his diet, start exercising, etc. All of which is distasteful to the patient. So the patient decides, instead of doing all these things, it's better to give up the doctor. It's like that. So what is renunciation? If we take a modern example, all sports persons have come to understand that they need to get, you see, to perform, all of them have physical skills, they have talent, they have abilities, they have expertise, they have training. But how much of all that expertise and training do they actually apply when they need it most, when they're out there playing, is the question. So therefore, who wins or loses is all determined in the mind in the end, not in the body. And so there are coaches who have gone into the depth of what makes a sports person excel in the field, and they call it the zone. They've come to understand that this started with basketball players in the US. That a basketball player sometimes, rarely, the top ones little more often, get into what they call as the zone, when they're totally focused, totally concentrated on the game. And then nothing they do can go wrong. It's success, success all the way. It's the same in cricket. A few months back, when Sachin Tendulkar was interviewed by a magazine, he brought out this concept of being in the zone. Nowadays people refer to it all the time. But what you need to understand is that the best of sports persons get into the zone. You understand what the zone is? Where there is full concentration. There is no thought even of yourself. There is no thought of past mistakes. There is no thought of anxiety for the future. There is just total focus on the present. They know that when they get into the zone, they can't get out. Sachin Tendulkar, nobody in the world can get him out when he gets into the zone, and so also with other sports persons. But the problem is, they don't know how to replicate it, and when they get into the zone, they don't know how to remain in the zone. And therefore, they just stumble upon it. Once in a while they get into the zone, they excel, and that's what makes them the most famous, richest, most proficient players in the world. What Vedanta is talking about through renunciation is every time you act, every time you transact with the world, you are in the zone. Every moment of your life, perfect activity comes out of you. Whatever it is that you may be doing. You could be singing, you could be playing a game, you could be doing your business, you could be cooking, you could be doing anything. And this is why renunciation is of utmost importance. Renunciation of what? Obviously not of action. Renunciation of the impeding factors that interfere with your success, that come in the way of your obtaining excellence. In the case of Sachin Tendulkar, it's renunciation of those factors that get him out. So why should anybody not want to renounce? It's because we don't understand what it is that we don't want it. So what we need to understand is that to be 100% focused, you need to be dedicated to a higher cause, dedicated to the field of activity that you're engaged in. No sports person can ever get into the zone unless he's dedicated to the sport. No musician can ever get into the zone unless he is dedicated to music. You know, you've heard of the famous Tansen, right? He used to be in the court of Akbar, the famous Emperor Akbar. And Akbar adored his music, worshipped him because he was an outstanding musician. But one day it occurred to Akbar that if Tansen is so good, what must his guru be like? So he said, will you take me to your guru? Or I want to listen to your guru. So Tansen said, forget it. He's not going to come here to court and sing for you. So Akbar said, fine. He was a humble king. He said, doesn't matter. I'll go where your guru is. So he took him. And Akbar listened to the guru singing incognito. The guru didn't know that these people were listening. And then he was simply amazed, swept off his feet by his guru Swami Haridas's music. And when they went back to court, Akbar asked Tansen, say, you are excellent, but your guru has a distinct edge over you. What is it that gives him that edge? Why can't you get in there? Tansen said, very simple, Maharaj. The difference is, I sing for you, he sings for God. So to get into the zone, you have to be able to sing, play, work for God. And that is what renunciation is. The 9th chapter of the Gita says, Yat karoshi yadashnasi yad juhoshi dadasi yat tat kurushva madarpanam. Whatever you do, whatever you offer, whatever you give, whatever your transaction in the world is, do it as arpanam, as your offering to me. To me means to Atman, to God. And then you have to be in the zone. Then whatever you do will be perfection. The problem is, whatever we do, we contaminate it, we pollute it with thought of yourself. Before you ask the question, what will I get out of it? How will I benefit? How can you expect such an action to be anywhere near perfect? That's why whatever we do, you forget one thing, you mess up somewhere else. In the midst of all that, this morning a lady asked me, then how is it that my daughter gets 97% every time? I said, it's like Andho mein Kana Raja. Everybody else is a super fool, your daughter is a fool. That's all there is. In the sense that has any one of us really tapped our potential? Can each one of us say that yes, every time I act, that action is superb, par excellence? No, we can't. And until we get to that state, there must be that yearning, there must be the striving to get there, because you're capable of it. And only you are capable of it. You means you as a human being. And it's so easy to get there. All you have to do is clean drop thinking of yourself. Drop this desire from the past that's pushing you into activity. Disconnect from the past. Disconnect from the future. Desire pushing you from the past. Anxiety for the fruit pulling you from the future. When that happens, your mind strays into the wasteful avenues of the past. The past is dead and over and done with. However much you think of the past, it's not going to help you. The future is unborn. The more you think of the future, you see, so the mind is distracted, strays into the wasteful avenues of the past and the future, and therefore to that extent, the mind is not behind the present action. When the mind is not concentrated on the present action, you make mistakes, And that's what takes away from excellence. So therefore renunciation is giving up that which interferes with perfect action. In chapter 6, verse 1, he says, Anashrita karma phalam karyam karma karoti yaha saha sannyasi cha yogi cha na niragnir na chakriyaha. Means one who does what one ought to do without depending upon the fruit of action. Anashrita karma phalam. Such a person is a sannyasi, a yogi. Then he gives the disqualifications. Not a person without agni. Agni means ideal. Not a person who doesn't have a higher ideal. Nacha akriyaha. Nor a person who is inactive. Inactive, tamas. Without agni, rajas. So a tamasic and a rajasic person cannot perform perfect action. Only when you get into sattvic mode can you perform perfect action. And therefore, if we as a nation want to be ranked among the top countries of the world, somehow you have to get into sattvic mode, sattvic life model, sattvic business model, sattvic art model. Everywhere we must operate out of sattva. Unless we do that, we have no hope in life of getting anywhere near excellence. If you want India to be really shining, and not only in the newspapers and hoardings, you have to get into sattva mode, which means there must be a concerted effort to take in the values of Vedanta, reflect over them, struggle with them. Struggle with your tamas and rajas, eradicate tamas and rajas, and establish yourself in sattva. And then you get into the zones. Zone means sattva. They just give some term and everybody else laps it up. What does the zone mean? Nobody knows, except in Vedanta. You get into sattva, then that's when you get into the zone, and then everything you do becomes perfect. As we said earlier, the world will acknowledge it, give you a standing ovation. That's what has been the case with all perfect individuals in the past. All sattvic individuals in the past. You don't have to worry about where you're going to get your next meal from. Where am I going to make a living? Anybody who thinks of just making a living is tamas or rajas. A sattvic person. Anybody with merit doesn't think of a living. Einstein did not think of making a living, nor did Newton, nor did Emerson, nor did the greatest of great thinkers of the world. They were focused on just action. You do that, the world will return the courtesy, the world will come to your feet. Particularly in this day and age, we are in the age of meritocracy. Whoever has merit, the world will acknowledge. Even in sport, a person who performs gets all the endorsements, all the money, all the recognition, all the name, fame, etc. The moment their performance drops out, you don't see the face of the person. So if you want recognition, all you have to do is tap your merit. Merit you already have. That divine power has bestowed us very generously with enough merit. But you, by your own accord, have completely crushed it. You're dissipating your energies, your talent, you're wasting it. And the law of nature is anything that is wasted, anything that is not used is taken away from you. So if you don't use your talent, you lose it. Renunciation is waste disposal. You go into any home, particularly in America, here at least we have smaller homes. In the United States, they have huge homes. 2 people living there, they'll have a 6-bedroom mansion. What will they do with the 6 bedrooms? You know what they do? Accumulate all the trash. They don't have our concept of, what is it called? Bhangar. They don't have it. So when there's waste, you simply dump it in the guest room, dump it in the garage, dump it all over the place. Their homes are full of trash. So also with us. When you go home, you take a fresh look at your wardrobe, fresh look at your kitchen, fresh look at your home, you will find there's enough to discard. There are things which you haven't used for years together, which you are never going to use for the rest of your life. Then why is it there? Someday it will be useful. You know, there are people, ladies, when they first got married, they're nice and slim, trim. By the time 5 years have passed, you can't recognize the lady. Put on so much weight. And yet they retain the clothes that they used when they were 20 kilos lighter. And you say, why do you keep them? You know, next month I'm going to go on this diet and I'll get back to what I was. This goes on for the next 30 years. It never happens. So, waste disposal. When you remove all the waste that there is externally, you find there is so much relief, so much space. Similarly with the mind. In the mind, you've collected, accumulated all kinds of trivial, unimportant preoccupations, which have no meaning to you. And yet you think about it, yet you do it, yet you are engrossed in it. And what is tragic is that the preoccupation with all these trivial things which are meaningless even to you prevent you from acting, performing actions that are significant, that mean a lot to you. So renunciation is a conscious effort to rise above trivialities and focus on that which is meaningful and significant. And then what happens? You become a conduit for Atman to flow through. You know, there was a young man who just got engaged, and the girl took him to meet her parents. You know, this is in America, it's all ulta. Here the parents introduced the girl. There the girl took the young man and introduced him to her parents. And she came from a very rich family. So her father, arrogant that he was, he took one look at this fellow and knew that he was nowhere near his standard. So when the daughter and the mother were busy taking dinner out, this man decided to give him treatment. So he said, "So, what do you do?" He said, "Sir, I'm a Bible scholar." He almost started laughing. He said, "Bible scholar? Oh, that's a very nice occupation to have. But how are you going to support my daughter? You know, she's used to the good things of life." So he said, "I will study, sir. God will take care of her." So then he said, "What about when you have children? Who's going to look after the children?" He continued in the same vein. "I will continue to study the Bible and preach the Bible, and God will take care of everything." And he went on and on. With every question he said, "God will take care." He was thoroughly disgusted. After the young man left and the husband and wife were together, alone, the mother of the girl very excitedly asked, "So, what do you think of him?" He made a dirty face and said, "You know, this guy, he does nothing and he has no plans for the future. And on top of that, he thinks I'm God." But as far as the young man was concerned, he had full confidence that God will take care, and it is true, God takes care. Once you get into the sattvic mode, like Prahlada, he did nothing. He didn't even make an attempt to save himself. He simply surrendered to God. You see, when you say surrender, you think it's a lazy way. If a lazy fellow says, "Oh, God will take care." No, it's not that. You try. It's a very difficult concept to give up worries, to give up your anxiety, to give up all your stress and be assured that God will take care of everything. And that's a fantastic feeling. When you have that, you become a conduit for Atman to function. And how do you do that? We saw yesterday in the last two verses that we did, we saw the ability to see oneness, samadarshanaha. Samatvam. Samam. This is the key word. You can consider yourself spiritual only when you are able to step out of your differentiation and separateness and see a oneness with people who are externally, on the face of it, different from you. So yesterday we saw, how do you see this oneness? Number one, you must understand that everyone is a product of nurture and nature. One, you have everybody has a distinct nature determined by his or her vasanas. And that is very difficult it is impossible to overcome. You tried correcting a person with angry vasanas. First thing in the morning he wakes up and starts shouting. And then if his wife is Vedantin, the moment the husband starts shouting, she understands, oh, all is well with the house. My husband is perfectly healthy. If first thing in the morning, everything is shant and quiet and serene, she will get terribly worried. Maybe there is something wrong with the husband. Maybe he's got fever, maybe he's got high blood pressure, something is wrong. So when you understand the person is a product of his or her nature, you don't try and change the person. You don't get excited about it. You don't get agitated about it. You simply accept. And you admire the play of vasanas. That's a beautiful state to be in. And then nurture. Training. A refined person is a product of his own training. If you and I consider ourselves refined, we have some manners, we have etiquette, we have this, that and the other, it's no big deal. It's because we've been trained. If a person out on the streets doesn't have it, he's crude and unrefined, this poor fellow hasn't been exposed to the training that we've had. If he had the same training that we had, perhaps he would be better than us. Second way of seeing this oneness is to fix a higher ideal, as we saw yesterday. When you look at yourself only, you see maximum differences. You're not able to see oneness even with your children. But you identify with the family. You have a family as a goal. There are people who are extremely dedicated to the family. They see a oneness in all the family members. Rise still further.